Welcome to Behind the Camera, the channel that tells the story behind the camera. On this channel I'm going to be telling my story and writing a book that will be published in time for next year's 61st anniversary of Thunderbirds. There are lots of Davids who worked on Thunderbirds. David Elliott, David Lane, David Holliday, David Mason, David Graham of course who played Parker, and me, David Hicks. You don't have to be called David to work on Thunderbirds, but it helps. Slightly confusingly, my name is David Graham Hicks. Whenever I say I worked on Thunderbirds, the reaction is always the same. Oh, I love Thunderbirds. I love Thunderbirds because it's a bright, optimistic view of the future with comedy, drama and loads of explosions. To make any film you need teamwork, and this is the original Thunderbirds team and friends. We had a much smaller team, but we did have a huge number of people who backed us financially and encouraged us that we could do it. There are three types of people in this world: creators, spectators and commentators. People who make things happen, people who watch things happening, and people who don't know what happened but talk about it anyway. We're all these people at different times in our lives, but my favourite place is being a creator. Next time you type a Word document, there's a little button that says create, so we're all creators. So how did I get to be director of photography on Thunderbirds? Let's begin at the very best place for stories, at the beginning. This is me at around 8 or 9 years in 1976, waiting for Thunderbirds to come on TV. Before Thunderbirds came on, there was a boring political programme called Weekend World.
Hello and good morning. One of the most significant features of the Queen's speech on Thursday was something she didn't say.
Can you imagine how excited I was after watching Brian Warden waffling on about Maggie Thatcher? I first got into Thunderbirds because of my best friends Matthew and Terence Tevan. Matthew and Terence were huge fans of Thunderbirds and they were great at making models. Here we see Thunderbird 1 and Hangar. Matthew made Thunderbird 2 and I made the palm trees. My real interest was in the camera side of Thunderbirds. Here I look like a real special effects man covered in dirt and oil and holding my Super 8 camera. As the first part of the story, here's an interview I did with Matthew about the Super 8 films that we made. I don't know anyone longer than this person. Matthew Tevan is my childhood friend. I don't actually know how we met.
I think we just lived close by, and when we're playing outside in the school holidays, we'd probably just run into each other. And
so Matthew is responsible for getting me into the film industry because Matthew had a camera. What camera did you have?
we had a Chinon Super 8 camera. It was actually my dad's. He used for sort of taking holiday films. So sort of Super 8 silent camera.
The first film we made was Meteor, which strangely is Terence is credited as being the producer, your brother. Maybe right. We didn't think it was good enough.
Maybe we wanted some variety of the credits. Maybe he gave us the 10 quid we needed for a couple of Super 8 cartridges.
Yeah. You probably understand Meteor more than me because I'm not sure I understand it now.
Well, the premise of it, and it was, again, you know, no prizes for spotting any inspiration from Jerry Anderson shows, but yeah, it was basically, I mean, I think an airliner crashes inexplicably, and then this organisation is set up, a special organisation called Toucan, that was Tactical Organisation and United Command of American Nations or something, and it had this like terrible little logo of just a toucan beak. Anyway, that was sort of set up and had this thing that was like cloud base from Captain Scarlet, and yeah, they were like there's a title card with the little lettering thing. It says an organisation must be set up to stop disasters like this happening. This plane crash that was inexplicable. I don't know quite what they were meant to do. But anyway, then this like, you know, asteroid is seen sort of flying through the sky, and they launch this ship to sort of try and knock it off course. And they do. and that's the end.
We didn't really have any lighting. I think we had one light. The sky in that is terrible. It's just this blanket nailed to the wall.
Not pulled straight. It's all sort of, you know, saggy and the light seemed to light up the wires holding up the models. When you watch the film, it's like, oh, there's a light to showcase that everything's on wires.
And it snowed at that time, so we thought, great, we can film some bits in the snow. It's going to look really great, which it didn't.
Which it didn't, because snow is really boring.
It just looks like models in the snow.
Yeah, all like, because it was real snow and we were outside. We were just shooting down on everything, and none of the models are purpose built. There's a truck and the wheels don't go around. It was quiet, but it was, you know, it was fun. And I don't know if it's in hindsight or at the time, but I remember, like, once it was done, I think that's when we really noticed the sky and just kind of like, wow, that looks really crap. Like, why didn't we notice that at the time? And I think you're busy filming and you're kind of caught up in just getting the ship to fly along or whatever. And that, to me, was one of the sort of the first lessons in, it doesn't matter what it looks like when you're there, it's what it actually looks like on film.
I think that's why we moved to your conservatory for filming, because it guaranteed a bit of good light then, aren't we?
Yeah, I mean, this is the conservatory, just a big room with a glass roof, so it had natural sunlight. And the huge leap was we then had a bit of 8x4 hardboard that we painted the sky on, so it was flat. So it was a flat piece of stiff hardboard that we could prop up, and it got universally lit by the daylight. And it was like, wow, this is...
Proper sprayed on clouds in
Proper
random.
sprayed on, yeah.
With no horizon or anything, but hey, it was a step up. And we flew the models on fishing line instead of cotton.
So we started the second film, Thunderbirds, and that was a bit more advanced than Meteor. It's a bit more, the sky looked a bit more real, and we had the famous porridge that was lava.
Yeah.
We thought, how can we do lava? And we made up this porridge, and we thought we'd dye it red, and then we couldn't afford enough red dye.
We miscalculated how much red dye would be needed, so we ended up with this very kind of sickly pink, and a very small amount as well of pink porridge. So we had to kind of really kind of like just out of shot push it along, which you can kind of tell.
So there's a bit where the pink porridge kind of splurges onto these Hornby,
Yes.
Hornby made houses. And
Yeah.
the Thunderbird 1 launch was actually quite good, really.
Yeah, I mean, we built the hangars and we put I don't know if it was a firework or a banger. I remember we went to a joke shop. There was like a joke shop, and we went there and we got, I think, whatever we used that came out of Thunderbird 1's thrust. Or maybe it was a bunch of matches. I think it was a bunch of matches that were in there, and we sort of lit them, and they flared up together, which was... But I remember the other thing that we got from this joke shop was this stuff that like kind of exuded coloured smoke and produced this like weird sort of snake thing.
I remember that. It's like you lit it and you got all this smoke, but then this snake came out.
So we had to sort of position it.
You had to cut before the snake popped out and just see the smoke.
But that was good, and we put that sort of in the volcano area, so there'd be sort of like red smoke.
Actually, did the countdown, the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 with each ship.
Yep.
It's pretty impressive.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
I think I built Thunderbird 2 just anyway, and then I think the others were built for that film, because Thunderbird 5 isn't even in it, and I remember that was very hastily built, and you don't really see it. The rescue vehicle, my brother Terence made, and it was out of a Tamiya tank with whatever it was stuck on top. It was basically a recovery vehicle, and I remember that was quite exciting because it actually was motorised and drove along by itself. And, you know.
You guys actually made most of the stuff, but I do remember making the palm trees.
Yes,
painting and making the palm trees.
Yeah.
There was like that observation cage thing or whatever, is the thing that gets into trouble. That was built, must have been built for that. So the top of it was an aerosol can, and then it had a toilet roll or whatever, and then it had 4 cigarette boxes around it, which were kind of shaped like that.
That lowering is like an early appearance of the tin foil.
And it was also very...
Wasn't there lava? There's lava at the bottom, wasn't it? Another lava.
And I think that lava was actually red.
I remember we used that food dye, I can't remember what it's called now. It's like cake.
Yeah, it's stuff we use for cakes. And when you're making cake, not that I do this a lot, but when you make cakes, you just put in like a tiny drop and the whole thing like goes red. And you're like, this is fantastic. So we're chucking in bottles of this stuff into the porridge and it's just pink. I'd read that's how they did the lava in the time machine, in the George Pell time machine, that sort of porridge, and I think in The Lost World. So that's how you do it.
Pink porridge is not terribly scary, is it? Really?
No.
Particularly when it's not flowing. It's just sort of like a...
The Kojak car made an appearance.
The Kojak car.
So the Kojak car was a Corgi toy of Kojak's car from the TV show, and I think we sprayed it. We dirtied it down. We sprayed it with a little bit of matte black paint. Just
we did the Thunderbird 2 ramp, didn't we? We made the Thunderbird.
We
2
did, yeah.
And the takeoff and everything.
yeah, and we did that, and then we had a enlarged section of the pod with the pod door opening and the thing coming out.
We used to get this green stuff from Beatties. It wasn't terribly convincing grass.
No.
But it smelled great. It had a great smell in a bag. Like from Meteor, where we shot it outside for real, everything was shooting down. All the sets for the Thunderbirds film were built up off the ground. We had a bunch of these Unigate crates. So anyway, we had a bunch of these crates, so we could raise the whole setup about, I don't know, a foot, maybe 18 inches off the ground, get the camera at least at ground level, so you were shooting stuff to make it look a bit more credible. So that was kind of an advance from the previous film. Yeah. Back then, there was no we take everything for granted. There was no preview. There was no you couldn't see anything right after you shot it. Whatever you shot was like, okay, I guess that's what we got. You couldn't tell how it was being exposed. You couldn't really tell what was even in shot because I don't think the viewfinders were that accurate. Which, when we were shooting models and stuff, and you got edges of backdrops and people's hands pushing things along, it was really, lucky we kind of got anything.
You had quite a good camera. You had a Shinnon. I had a very cheap Canon one that half the time seemed to produce out of focus pictures.
Something that I do remember though about that camera you had was the handle folded up. So you could get it you could put it flat on the ground almost, put the lens almost flat on the ground.
The films actually came in 50-foot reels, which is about 3 minutes, 18 frames per second. And they were sent off to Germany for a week. And then you sent them off in an envelope, which came with the film. And then you waited a week and the envelope came back with a great excitement.
Yeah, a week if you were lucky. I mean, in the summer, when everyone was sending in their holiday films, I do remember it took longer. Did
we get them from Boots? I remember Argos. To save money, we used to get 3-pack from Argos.
I want to say $13.99 rings a bell for some reason. But yeah, they were like £5 or £6 each.
That's a lot of money, isn't it? At that age, it's like spending your money on film.
Yeah.
Instead of sweets.
The Boots film was cheaper, I remember. And then there was Agfa film that I think was around about the same price. It was very grainy, I remember. They looked different. That was sort of my first, exposure, no pun intended, to the fact that it was like, these don't look the same. Like when you cut them together, the Kodak film was sort of bluer, and the Agfa film was redder or grainier or contrastier or something. Yeah. And the Boots film, it looked like it was never really. It felt like it had half the amount of emulsion on it that the others had. It felt like a very thin image for some reason. But yeah, I mean, it was crazy. 50-foot, silent. There was no sound. I mean, you could get sound, but we didn't have that. I mean, the equipment we had was the equipment we had, so...
We just kind of ignored sound, didn't we? It's like, we'll sort it out later.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember at the time being, and still am, very interested in visual storytelling. So like Thunderbirds, there's launch sequences, there's no dialogue. I mean, there's music, obviously, but there's a lot of telling a story visually. And I don't know if that was sort of born out of the fact that we couldn't do sound or not pushing to get sound, just because no, but this is proper filmmaking, no dialogue.
You actually did the soundtrack. I think you had records and then you basically recorded on a tape and paused it at the right moment, which is incredibly difficult to do. Really.
There were these BBC sound effects records that you could get, and there was sounds of the town or sounds of the country, and they'd have just stock bits of stuff. So we'd try and sort of use those wherever we could, and record from an LP onto a cassette. And if you were feeling really ambitious, you could record it once and then get a little piece of paper and put that on the erase head and then record it again and lay two things together. But whatever you laid on the second time, I think was more dominant than the first time. Very seldom, because it was, it was very risky, and everything was, of course, done linearly. It was like, all right, let's record the first bit of music, pause, quick, get the next record, find the thing, record. I mean, it was just,
And then once you've finished editing the film on this tiny little viewer thing, you span the handles on and splice the film.
Yep.
And cut it. And once you cut it,
That was
it.
That was it.
You could join it back together, then you get a horrible join at the wrong moment.
So the joins didn't always go through the projector brilliantly either. Like you could normally, when you were watching it, but you'd either hear it or see it going through. Because that was the other thing. It was there weren't any prints, there wasn't any negative, there wasn't any backup. So what you shot was what you got, sent it away, it came back, and that was it, like you say. And if you cut it or, because I remember when we did the Thunderbirds film and we tried to do the title sequence, in the show, they would have clips from the episode and they would just do a second print and cut it together. We didn't have that. So I remember we found either other takes or like the lead-in of shots, which is why some of the shots in that title sequence, I think, are like the fire flash on the runway rather than the fire flash landing, because we only had one take of it landing, but we did have some extra footage of it just sitting there, I think. I mean, I'm probably remembering that wrong, but there was that sort of thing. It was just like we didn't have any,
It's great that there were toys around at that time. You could kind of utilise your toys. You could film your toys.
Looking at it now, I think that Thunderbirds film all takes place kind of on one ground plane, and there's no horizon. There's no horizon painted in the sky, and there's no horizon in the set. So it's just sort of like dirt, and then this dead straight line, and then clouds. Which when you look at it now, there's no gap, and there's no like, there's some like distant buildings or hills or something. We just didn't even think about that,
So what's next? Predator.
Predator was the next one.
Bit of a dismal failure.
Predator was a dismal failure, but an interesting, as all of them were, an interesting learning experience. That was our first live action.
Well, we loved Jaws, didn't we? I mean,
Yeah.
Jaws is such a favourite film of mine. So we were inspired to do our version of Jaws in our Salmons Brook.
Yeah, because we had the brook right there.
Yeah, and we spent it's probably like 3 weeks building this shark thing.
Yeah.
Made out of, I can't remember what.
We built like the front half of the shark. We had like the mouth and sort of basically up to the fin, the dorsal fin, which is crazy now. I mean, I think we built this thing. It was like, because it had this sort of wooden / electric thing frame, all held together with sort of gaffer tape or whatever. And then I think that was covered in cardboard, so it was kind of squared off. And then we glued some sheets together for the skin, and then we stuffed all this sawdust in it to kind of make it round. And I think at one point it didn't look too bad. I think there was like one angle at the front where it was like, it's actually kind of round.
The funny thing is that your neighbours never seemed to ask you what we were doing.
No,
They just
I think
went,
at a certain
"Morning."
point, we were like,
Carrying this 8-foot shark down the garden.
Is it okay if we come into your garden and carry our shark into the brook? Oh yeah, all right, yeah. Just.
The unfortunate thing, we have to say this now, the unfortunate thing about this film is that all the reels of the actual shark failed in process. We didn't get them back. We were waiting for them to come back, and all the reels with the actual shark in failed. So all we've got is the reaction shots of people attacking the shark in some random way. We haven't got anything of the shark in it.
Very much like Jaws itself. Ironically.
There's not even any photos of the shark.
It's like the fish that got away. It's like, no, really, we actually built this thing and it sat in the river, and I think you were inside it, like flapping the mouth and its fins, and it was sitting in, as you said, the brook was about 1 foot deep.
And of course we set fire to it at the end. We set fire to everything.
We set fire?
Yeah.
Yeah, so what we ended up with was a bunch of live action with no sound, and as you said, a couple of people stabbing. Yeah. I think there's an interesting bit where I think you play a fisherman. Unbeknownst to you, there's no shark warning, so you're happily fishing, and then I think it must bite the line and pulls you in, and then it bites your arm off. So sort of like, you can see you struggling in the water, and then when you pull your arm out, it's been torn off, which is quite. Yeah, there's blood in the water, and you can see it's not like, it's an actual arm that has been severed. So that's quite. And I think you built a fin that we were going to do for when it was sort of like. you know, scoping out what it could eat.
Like that Some Bad Hat Harry, that type of...
Exactly, yeah.
Just
that
a fin.
realistic, just a fin.
Yeah, I think that's just about the only bit where anything happens, though, isn't it? Really, I think there's a bit where they're sort of having a meeting near your shed, and somebody's being terribly grown up and smoking in it.
Oh, probably, yeah.
Tony Archer, probably.
Tony Archer's probably smoking.
Yeah, the cameras had like things you say, like kind of like settings like tungsten light. I'm like, oh, I don't know what that does.
And of course, the famous sticky lecture set.
Yeah, the titling set.
And it was particularly wonky on that one as well.
Yeah, it was one
it's
of them
all over the place.
Where we did it outside.
It was really cold. And having to like get these little things, and they wouldn't stick in the cold because of whatever, they were getting too brittle. And I remember just trying to, the fact that if it just stuck at all, we're like, fine, just shoot it.
Yeah. And it's shot against the sky, isn't it, on a piece of glass, camera pointing up.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, it was shooting up, and I think they're down. Yeah, and I think a couple of the letters are the wrong way around for that reason, because we had to like do it backwards. Predator, I think it was a disaster. It was a failure. We shot a bunch of stuff off the TV of different things just to kind of cut it together. And really, the best thing about it is the danger sharks sign that my dad actually painted. It was beautiful lettering. He was always very good at that. So it's worth seeing for the sign. But that's about it.
But we tried to recover things by doing a trailer for our next film.
Yes.
And there's a shot of me. I've got my Fanderson 82 badge on, proudly. But we did a bit of a trailer for our next film, which was
The Terminator. Yeah, and I think just going back to what we were saying about Super 8, because they came in these 50-foot cartridges, I think we were just trying to finish off the reel, and for some reason we had this idea for this thing called The Terminator, which became the next film.
Quite good at naming films. You're quite good at naming films before they actually exist, like Predator. Terminator is before the real Terminator. So James Cameron, can we have our...
That's right, yeah.
He invented Terminator.
Well, Arnold Schwarzenegger would basically paved the way for his career.
Yeah, I think we've done about 3 Terminators before the first one came out. Yeah, I noticed on the graphics you were particularly lazy because you came up with Terminator 1, and then Terminator 2 and 3 are just stuck on a piece of paper with written. Because you obviously thought, I'm not drawing all that certificate thing again.
Yeah, there was a quite involved backstory that never made it into the film. So he was a hitman. The Terminator was a hitman. He's killed at the beginning of the first film, or he's shot at the beginning of the first film because he double-crossed someone or let someone down or something, but he's not really dead. So the first film, he's going through and he's getting revenge on the people who the mob who were trying to kill him off. And it's just basically an excuse for a lot of sort of fights and running around and some quite gory makeup. I think we were that was what was going on in films at the time. I mean, it was like early 80s, so like American Werewolf in London, and I remember even the Professionals TV show at that time was kind of quite, violent, and you'd see blood and stuff. So we were sort of doing all that. And I mean, you watch the film now, and it's pretty,
Yeah, there's a bit of spray on, red spray on white t-shirts.
Yeah. Lots of blood, and someone gets their arm shot off, and good old-fashioned bit of Roger Corman throw something pan cut. And there's another shot of one of our friends, John Willis, who looks like he's either doing the gardening or attacking a shark that may be there from the previous film. But yeah, I mean, I think we did these, if I remember, we did these in a half term with friends from school, sort of like in the local area. Some of it was done at my house, some of it was done near Bushell Park train station, and actually the finale, the gunfight at the end, is done in what was the car park behind Bushell Park train station.
There's a bit where Connor gets his arm shot off, and he's kind of lying there with his arm elsewhere. And I think a train came in to the station, and we all just ran and hid in the bushes, left him there. There's probably reports on people phoning up and saying, I saw someone in Bushell car park, their arm was blown off.
Bright red blood everywhere. And this is amazing. Like there was a manufacturer of model kits back in the late 70s, early 80s that made 1-to-1 life-size scale guns. And you could get anything from a Colt 45, I think, all the way up to an M16.
And they were really quite convincing. They weren't
Yeah.
badly made. They were just
no, I mean, they
looked
were
like
proper.
proper guns.
I remember at the time we were really into Clint Eastwood movies and Dirty Harry and spaghetti westerns, and that was a big sort of influence. I think that.
That's kind of our mainstay, isn't it? Spaghetti westerns and Dirty Harry. I think the spaghetti westerns appealed to us because we knew we haven't really got sound. So
Yeah.
we do have to tell our story like
Yeah.
the westerns do. They're operatic.
Yeah. Well, I think there's a very sort of just direct way that those films are made. Like there's no, I mean they're well made, but they're very much they're on location and you know there's never any sort of really overly pretty shots. You know, they're very real, and even the spaghetti westerns, which have a poetic quality to them. And I don't know how much of it was real. I think probably a bit more of it than should have been. I don't know how many actual contacts there were. I think he might have done martial arts. Like I feel like there was some knowledge there as to fighting, or you boxing or something. I can't remember.
It's quite good casting. He does look actually a bit scary and frightening.
Yeah, and he was good on screen. He was a good actor, and he's
Yeah. There's a bit of chuckling every now and again. There's a bit of
yeah. Well, you can put that down a bad direction, probably.
yeah, and there's the random tartan
Yeah.
berets. Basically, we couldn't find enough people to be in our film, so we just
Yeah.
used the same people with different costumes. The fight scenes, some of them are really good and some of them are really
Yeah.
bad. There's some really good ones that look convincing, and there's some really bad ones that
Yeah.
don't look convincing at all. It's nice to see the appearance of 29 Bus as we're out and about
Yes.
filming in our local. I love the old buses.
Then we go to the second film, and that opens with the two people talking. You play one of them, and the guy said something like, "He's not dead. We're gonna have to get him. We're still gonna have to get him." In true sequel fashion, let's just remake the first film again. But we actually did them both at the same time. For some reason. In the third film, it's revealed he's actually sort of working for an organisation. He's not just a hitman assassin. He's he's part of this thing called the SIU, and my brother made the cards for that. I think we made the first two films like in a half term. Again, it was all because we were all at school or whatever. We did that in a half term. Then we did the third one. It's hard to talk about these films individually, but I guess talking about the second film, again, lots of makeup effects or gore effects. I mean, you kind of watch it now and you think, God, what were we thinking? You know.
There's me with my head being chopped off.
Yeah.
With a terrible... We made a kind of paper mache head with a terrible wig.
Yep.
And then gave me the wig and then did a cut. And there's
Dressed
Connor
him
being
up the
cut
same
in
way.
half.
Yep.
And the wriggling body is left, I think it had like Beatty's bushes sprayed red.
Yep. Yep.
The bit that I think you commented on that actually works surprisingly well is when the Terminator gets sort of back to his house or somewhere, and someone gets an aerosol can and fires flame on his legs. I mean, it probably seems obvious, but I think because we know what it's like, we're like, oh, that's actually not as bad as we think. But it's just a dummy. It's just a dummy dressed up like the Terminator, which someone sort of held up and just sort of puppeteered. And it's only a few frames, but it's sort of... Certainly I think in the third film, there's a lot of like, oh, we're on this location, there's a bit where there's a rope. Oh, let's just swing across this river on a rope. That wasn't planned, that wasn't written in. We were just there on the location. So things sort of presented themselves for sort of basic story points. So I think we made the first two films like in a half term. Again, it was all because we were all at school or whatever.
I like when he steps out of the phone box with no glass.
Oh yes, which was an ad lib.
Yeah.
That was
Before mobiles, phone boxes.
Yep.
Putting the money in
Putting the money in.
putting the money in the slot, making his call.
1982.
I remember when they had all the books in the phone box.
Yeah.
You could swing up the phone, look up someone's number
Yep.
in the phone book.
Which, of course, in the James Cameron Terminator, he does that. He goes to the phone box and he looks up Sarah Connor, and you see him going down the list of names. We did that in half term. Then we did the third one, and then I think we decided we're gonna finish it off. We're gonna do a fourth one, and we wanted to make it sort of a bit bigger. So we ended up going in. We ended up going into London, which you see in the film, and Waterloo Station, and around the Houses of Parliament, and these kids. I mean, we were teenagers, but still, running around outside the Houses of Parliament with realistic guns.
We'd be immediately arrested now, wouldn't we? If someone saw you with a plastic gun outside the House of Parliament. Realistic plastic
Yeah,
gun
yeah,
as
not
well.
like with a red tip or anything, like a proper, you know.
They'd probably shoot you. They'd probably be a marksman.
Yeah.
We saw him with a gun and we just shot him. There's that Benny Hill moment where the police are standing on the corner and we run past and then slow walk for a bit and then carry on running again. It's very Benny Hill.
Yeah. Like for those 4 paces when you're walking casually. Oh no, I thought they were up to something, but no, they're clearly just walking. It's fine.
Yeah, it's a bit like slowing down on the motorway when you see a police car. Wood Green Underground makes an appearance there, kind of going through there.
Yes, I think it was Wood Green, so then Piccadilly line, and then we're at Waterloo Station, I think, is the big station, and then the South Bank, obviously, and...
Yeah, Waterloo is the furthest we went anywhere, I think, in Parliament.
And then for the fourth one, bigger ambition, I guess. And, I think it starts off, we just watched it and it's endless people handing each other envelopes and letters which you can't read. I'm sure they said something at the time.
There is one where we actually get the letter in focus and what does it say?
I think it says something like, they're going to get you, or something.
Yeah. The one that's in focus you can read. We all thought we were becoming very grown up. There's lots of smoking and drinking.
And he's sitting there, he's watching, this Marilyn Monroe comedy, but he's unfazed, he's jaded, he says no, he's dead inside, the Terminator. Yes. So when the base explodes at the end, it's obviously leftover models from the Thunderbirds film.
The bomb was pretty convincing. It looked quite real, really. The bomb, dynamite with wires.
Yeah.
The makeup on the guy at the end was tissue paper. It was Kleenex tissues that came in like multiple colours for spring, like yellow and pink and purple. And we grabbed some of those, and I think just we wadded them up with water, and sort of just put them on his face. Which is why in all the shots, if you see he comes out like this, he's like, "Oh, I'm going to kill you," because if he'd put his head up right, it would have just fallen off because there was nothing holding it on.
Yeah. I'm not sure what he was doing when it all exploded and he just this like daydreaming face. I think Tony Archer was quite into the story and he kept asking about the story, didn't he? And we were just quite like, oh, it's another fight. I like the way the Terminator, when he gets shot, he has to take his coat off because he doesn't want to get blood on the coat. He's got a white shirt underneath. And then he tries to dig out the bullet from his arm, which is a bit of polystyrene, I think, underneath the thing. Yeah.
The police station that's in the second film, I'm pretty sure it was not in use then, and that was 1982, 83, 40 years ago, and it still looks the same. It's still not in use.
I don't know why you feel a bit guilty when you're filming near police stations. You haven't done anything, but you just have this feeling like, I shouldn't be here and I shouldn't be doing this. And in our case, probably right, we shouldn't be running around the House of Parliament with 44 Magnum and whatever else. What was the other gun with the fancy clicky?
That was, I think that's an auto mag, a 44 auto mag. Whereas I think in one of in the second film, I think the guy inside the police station is meant to be counting how many shots. The old classic movie, he's fired 6 shots. Yeah. And knowing that he had a 44 Magnum, he goes outside, I'm going to get you now. But then the Terminator has a second gun, which he does in the third film as well. They have their nice little, very, respectful duel, their standoff, and they take their 10 paces, and he just whips out another gun. So he has no morality at all.
You know when he falls down that hill, he gets shot and he falls down that hill about 10 times. Does he say I was only doing my job?
That's what he says at the very end. Yeah, he's like, I was only doing my job, and then we cut to a very murky sort of sunset, very ambiguous.
Yeah. Our final film, grand opus, or whatever you want to call it, it's called Deep Quest. We're very influenced by Star Trek, so especially Star Trek the Motion Picture. It's got a lot of influences of Star Trek the Motion Picture. And how do I describe it? It's got a mixture of Doug McClure, Journey to the Centre of the Earth.
Hugely influenced by Star Trek the Motion Picture in terms of specific scenes. And I think just having something that was that scope. And I think it's interesting that, I think it's significant that we've done a couple of the models films, we've done the live action Terminator films, and this was sort of bringing them both back together. And I don't know if that was consciously or just, hey, we kind of felt like we knew what we were doing a bit more, and like, let's just try and do sort of a proper film, like we'd actually plan for a bit. I think there was probably some of that, like let's actually try and actually plan this thing out. And yeah, and it's basically a science fiction film where this sort of unmanned probe ends up getting sucked down this crevasse into the centre of the Earth, and this submarine crew has to go down and get it before it blows the world up. I think that 30 seconds conveys more of the story than if you watch the whole thing, because it's very confusing and was meant to have dialogue in it and didn't. And we shot scenes of the plan and lots of exposition, and we ended up trashing a lot of that stuff. I look at it now and you see all its faults, obviously, but it was so ambitious that had we thought about it for more than 10 seconds, I mean, we built the bridge of the ship. You know, we're still at school at this point, right? We're sort of teenagers. We built the bridge of the ship, the submarine, and it's built out of wood and a scaffolding framework because one of Dave's brothers had access to that. So we built this like 16 foot by 8 foot by 8 foot scaffolding of the bridge of the ship, and you know, it's not particularly detailed, but anyway, it's all built from scratch. It's nothing. We found some old chairs from a car. We built this thing, and you know, we got people in. You know, we got the same troupe of actors from the Terminator films to come in, and yeah, and we shot this thing, and it was built in sections so we could do the different sets we needed out of the same set pieces. That I think worked it worked really well, actually. I mean,
oh yeah, the floor is we were going to extend our garage, and the floor was going to be used. I think we were very lacking in the detail part of it because we raided the Ford Cortina for the seats of the Ford Cortina,
Yes.
and the switches.
and I think there's a car radio that I think is
a car radio.
yeah. And I think the cover that goes over the gear stick, I think that was taken out of there, and a few levers and I think there's a speedometer. I mean, it had been abandoned, and I think it's the car that you can see in Terminator 4. Yeah, it's lacking. I mean, it's definitely lacking. Yeah, the fairy lights
make an appearance there.
which is quite an impressive bit of production value. That the guy actually turns the switch and the lights come on, which they didn't really. I think you were there. Someone was off camera and basically plugged in the lights in sync with like, okay, now when they turned the switch, and then someone plugged the lights in. I was like, look, movie magic.
We obviously thought it was so good it deserves its own shot. Of course, the set could only be built as wide as the garden. The specification for the set was, well, we'll build it as wide as the garden. That's how wide it is.
That's how wide it is. And I think
We had lots of sections of the set that would reconfigure for like corridors, and even the probe ship at the end when they finally get on board that, which is meant to be all sort of derelict, and it's just a few of the walls put together and a couple of bits hanging down and some wires from the Cortina and stuff. And I think we had a bit of smoke from probably something we've set on fire, because we always set something on fire. And it just looked so hokey. We're like, this is so crap. And then we saw it on film, and it's like, this actually looks all right. Like, you wouldn't know. I mean, it doesn't look great in the way that none of the film looks great, but I mean, for what it was like, oh, you know, it doesn't matter what it, you know, panned a little bit this way or that way, it worked. And I think because it was maybe a bit crappy and we had to be a bit claustrophobic because there wasn't much of it there, I think probably helped, you know, made it feel claustrophobic.
Didn't your dad make a lot of the panels?
yes.
For the...
Yeah, I think we had, I don't know, like 12 of these panels, these 8x4 hardboard panels. And there were a couple that had angles on them, I think, for the front of the ship, which you don't really see because we couldn't do the window properly.
I remember being completely exhausted when we actually came to film it because we'd done like a load of scaffolding, carried the scaffolding and the flooring from my house to there.
And the clamps, remember that we had buckets. I mean, those, for people who haven't worked with scaffolding, those clamps that hold it together, they weigh like, I don't know, £2-3 pounds each. So we had buckets of these things that we would put, yeah. So then we had to bolt all that together. Yeah, we were going around the clock pretty much. I think we were like, I mean, I remember putting it together in the dark, and then the next day, like the sun had just come up. Yeah. And then it was something like then the actors sort of, and everything had been pre-painted, I think. The pieces were all there, but it was then, you know, putting the scaffolding together, and then I think the panels were just sort of tied on with garden wire. I think they had holes drilled in them, and then we just used garden wire to sort of attach them to the thing. So it was pretty solid.
Again, your neighbours didn't ask us what we were doing.
No, I think after a couple of days they were a bit like, so And I think probably because it was scaffolding, it looked like we were building something onto the house. I think maybe.
Oh right, they were like, is this going to stay here permanently?
Yeah.
But we shot it in, I think it was about a week. Again, it was summer holidays, and I think we shot for about a week with everyone, and we did, I don't know, like 3 days in the main set, and then I think we broke it down to the corridor, and the probe ship. I think those existed at the same time, and then we took some of it over to your house, where we had.
Yeah, we built a water tank in my garden. Yeah.
That was about 8 feet square for the flooding scene, and the scene at the end where they jump from the resurfaced probe onto the fishing boat, and then we sort of like sprayed a bunch of scorching on the probe, and we hadn't done any of the effects at this point, so we kind of knew roughly what we were doing.
I think we broke my mum's Hoover doing that stingray explosion type of thing.
I think so, yeah.
Because we had it on blow in the water to make, like, turn it on.
Yeah.
And then the water, and I think it didn't work properly after
Probably
that.
not.
Got in trouble for that. And we flooded the garden because the tanks leaked.
Right. Yeah.
You know, so there's just water everywhere. You know.
But that looked great though. I mean, the sacrifice of the Hoover aside, I mean, it was actually, I think that worked out pretty well as again, for what it is.
In the water tank, when we were filming the fishing boat, of course, we had to go to the shop again, get the food dye,
Yes.
the blue food
Blue
dye.
food dye now.
And you just keep putting more and more bottles of it just doesn't change colour.
No.
It did turn blue. If you don't put blue dye in the tank, you can see the bottom of the tank. We actually had to put the painted sky in the water rather than...
Right. Yeah.
Normally you have a tank and then you have a gap and then the sky is...
Yeah.
We couldn't do that. You kind of get away with it. You can
Yeah.
see the water lapping against
Yeah,
the
yeah.
end of the sky. But the fishing boat was quite good. That's quite a good part of it, really.
It moves along quickly, which I think helps, certainly at that point. And I think the garden shed works okay for the close-ups, and of course the shot that we just rewound and watched over and over again of them jumping.
This is where the Craven backwinder makes its best appearance. The Craven backwinder was like a gadget where you put the Super 8 cartridge in it, and you could film something and then wind it back and then film it again.
Part of the thing with the Craven backwinder was you had to sort of like stick a pen or a pencil into the cogwheel to sort of break it free, so the film was then free to be rewound by this cog in the backwinder. Otherwise it would just rip the perforations, which I think it did anyway all the time. But you really didn't want to shoot anything else on that. You'd sort of shoot something on the first, you know.
I wonder what they thought in Germany, you know. They've broken another one. What are they doing to my film? They're getting these broken cartridges from us, you know. And we did like a mat. We painted on a slide, wasn't it?
Yeah, we got 2 slides, and we had, I think, a filter holder. I think we had a filter holder for like Coke and filters.
Yeah, that was because I got a fancy new camera. Anton Bauer, I think it was.
Yeah,
and that
it's
did
really
slow
good.
motion and
Yeah.
and add a slide holder, which you could put a clear slide and then
Right.
paint a mat and then rewind the film. That was the most successful.
Because the mat was very close to the lens. It was very out of focus, which I think probably helped in some way. Because I mean, when you look at the shot, you can see, you know, everything's sort of transparent, but somehow or other, it actually sort of lines up, and where they are, and where they jump sort of onto the boat, and then it's a good little scene.
The other quite good one is where the probe flies up to the surface, and you did a mat of the probe from the top,
Oh, right, yeah.
and it's kind of flying through this tin foil. The tin foil.
Talk about the tinfoil.
Tin
Dave,
foil.
your-
Tin foil, I think, is my credit as the tin foil.
Absolutely.
I'd seen Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, and I saw that they made the tunnels out of some kind of heavyweight industrial tin foil.
Tinfoil, yeah.
But we didn't have industrial tin foil.
We did have something that was more than just...
What we did was I bought 150 metres of tin foil in like
It was like a drum. It was like that thick. Rather than that, it was like...
just as much as you like. We didn't have to keep going to Sainsbury's and buying another tiny roll of tin foil. We just had 150 meters of it.
But then you figured out, like...
Yeah, I worked out if we put a red filter in front of the camera, that will make it look like lava. And I think it works quite well.
So it was all lit with white light.
Yes, lit with white, and then a red filter on the camera.
Right.
The best shots were the ones you did on the... Matthew had this idea to take a photo of the model and then put the photo on a piece of glass, so you could get a tiny, like it's a long way. It was a bit like Star Trek: The Motion Picture.
Very much.
Very long distance shots, because Matthew built this huge model, impossibly large model. It was so big, you couldn't do much with it because it was just too big.
I think we could just about, I think when we did the first shoot with it, we had it set up at your house, and I think we could just about get it to come into shot and go out of shot. You'd made a solid track with Hornby Railway track stuff and proper, rolling things which would hold this thing, and that we could sort of be pushed along out of shot.
The track was quite funny. It was kind of a piece of wood balanced between ladders, I think, step ladders. And
Sounds like us.
It had railway track, 00 gauge railway track, with the train still. The trains were the track, with just wires.
I think there were cassette boxes. I seem to recall cassette boxes sellotaped on them to give it a bit more width, so that the wires wouldn't snag on the wooden.
There's shots of me in it where you can tell I look just completely exhausted, and then later on we did recutaways of me, and then I just look a bit normal. I brush my hair, and I was just like, I look all right, but the shots of me in the actual thing, I just look tired. And,
we were going around the clock.
We did that 3 times, that shuttle. The first time we did it, we used some of the set pieces. I don't know if we aborted it really quickly. And it was just this sort of, these guys sitting in this grey box, and that looked terrible. And then we decided, let's restage that scene at night. So we thought, we can get away with doing it in my dad's car. Which, of course, guess what, folks? If you haven't seen it, it looks like a bunch of kids sitting in a car at night. And then I think we just said, we've got to just actually build a proper mock-up of this thing that looks sort of like, it did look like the model. We
made a special set for that, and we had like the painted sky that we kind of moved.
Oh, that's right.
In front.
Yeah, for a couple of shots,
There is actually one really good shot of the model miniature flying across the water that lasts about 2 seconds.
Oh, yeah, very brief.
Sort of like the launching scene, it was a fiasco. And I'll take full blame for... I'd read somewhere that if you're shooting miniatures, put a bit of dish soap in the water so it'll help froth it up a bit and give it some scale. Yeah, we put in way too much. We put in way too much dish soap and just ended up with this foam everywhere. And the set itself was trying to contain the water, the hangar thing where it was sitting. So it was all bowing and stretching, and you could see the polythene. We should have just built a tank that held the water and then just built that inside it, so it wasn't dealing with any of the physics.
Yeah, because the set was part of the tank. I actually nearly cut my thumb off doing that. I was sawing something and it slipped, and I just kind of ran off. Where's Dave gone?
Yeah, because we were both, tinkering away, and I was probably underneath something. I was like, Dave.
2 stitches came back with
blood, sweat and tears, literally.
There's quite an impressive shot where you've got all these ships. We must have seen Jedi. All these ships cross.
Oh, in the dock?
In the dock, yeah. Not so impressive Hornby flying.
Oh, yeah.
It's something that's got a Hornby train on the front of it.
Yeah,
it lifts into the air,
But again, a lot of that dock set, as bad as it was built out of some of those same 8x4 pieces were built for the live action set. A lot of the underwater stuff was shot through a tank, as per Stingray and all those dry for wets things. Yeah, the beginning sequence and a couple of the shots of the ship when it's actually out at sea, we shot through a tank with. Which look pretty good.
They're a bit variable. Some of those definitely look like they're not underwater.
Yeah.
And some of them look like they're underwater.
Yeah.
It's a bit variable.
Definitely.
We did, using that same tank that we used for the lava flow with the little photograph moving over it. There's a shot when the probe ship comes out of erupts from the seabed that was done in that same tank. It was getting a bit cloudy by this point. It was shot upside down on the mushroom cloud that follows it. I think the probe was like a little cardboard model filled with plasticine that was just dropped in. So that went, whoosh, and then we squirted in some milk, I think, that sort of produced the mushroom cloud. And then when it's turned back up the other way.
Because we had this huge model that couldn't do much, we couldn't really move it hardly.
Yeah.
So Matthew's brother Terence, he made this smaller version of it, and we kind of were able to move it around a lot more and it, do more things.
It wasn't the same colour. It was sort of a matte grey. I think, to be honest, we probably took it off him before it was really finished because we just needed to shoot it. Right. So it was sort of a matte grey, whereas the original model was kind of a silvery grey, and it blended in with the tin foil a lot. Like, I remember it was quite hard to get it to see, especially when you put the red filter on there, which sort of, exaggerated or sort of crushed things together a bit. Whereas the small one, because it was matte grey, did actually at least stand out from the background, which helped those shots. I mean, they don't look the same.
The downside is they don't match at all. It's like...
So there was a scene that we definitely needed a smaller model for, which was the asteroid field sequence. I think we'd been to see a re-release of The Empire Strikes Back, and we're like, oh, it's so exciting, and that film's so slow. So we had this sort of small model built, and that, I think, for all of its shortcomings, I think we actually had that storyboarded, and I think actually shooting it was, I remember we were doing things like asteroid, whatever they were, on sticks and things, and we had the ship on wires, and we were making everything fly really close together, but you couldn't really see anything, again, because it was just silver on silver. And we put flour down. We had like flour that we put down so we could actually see shadows and things. And it was actually kind of like, oh, now you can actually like see how fast it is or see how close it is, which was actually kind of, I don't know if it's because we had the boards. There was just something about that sort of shooting that sequence, I remember, felt like we weren't having to do as much. It was like we were, we kind of had what we were going to shoot. We had our set. We had our rocks on sticks, which it was going to be the same for each thing, and it felt like we could actually just concentrate on like making it look good rather than just kind of getting something done, maybe. And it was done late we'd shot a lot of stuff by that point, and it had probably one of my favourite shots in the film where the ceiling is collapsing or whatever's supposed to be happening. The ceiling is collapsing. You see the ship kind of come through. And again, because you couldn't tell where it was in relation to the collapsing, we had it like come down from underneath and then through it, so you could see where it was and its relationship to these things coming down, which ended up looking really good. And of course, because it's on wires, you're like, wait a minute, how could it get through that gap if it's on wires? But it was shot 90 degrees. I mean, there was some fun stuff like that was actually felt like you could think about that a bit more than just, oh my God, we've got this huge model, let's film it before the water destroys it.
I think the photographic stuff worked really well, and I wish we'd have done more in that way, really. Just built the big model and taken photos, and we could have done it like that. 2001 style, yeah.
But one of the things that's weird is I think in one of those shots, I think the photographs are a little bit transparent because they were just cut out, and it's quite a bright light that was underneath them. And they were shot with neutral lighting, so I think it's basically just, there's no directional lighting on them really, on the ship. But as they sort of go into and out of shadow, it almost looks like the shadow's falling over it. Either your eye makes it, you think it's doing that, or just the fact that you're revealing a bit of detail.
I like the shot where you're flying along a time. You can see forwards, and that looks really good. What was the stuff in the tank?
And it was flour. I think it was lots of flour, quite sort of thickly built up, like in piles. So basically all of it, like the central red is, sort of a thickness, and then when there were like the rockier, darker bits were just where it was thicker. And I think it was slowly sort of sinking, would get wet and then sink into the tank, and the tank was lit just from two sides, I think. So it spread out a lot, so it was quite an even thing. Yes, it was just, flour clearly was a big discovery. Tinfoil and flour.
And there's quite a good bit where you're looking down on the photo and it flies underneath a bit of rock. That's good. And
it looks like the shadow actually contours over it. It doesn't look like a photograph. It's kind of...
And I came up with my spinning
record
player with tinfoil, spinning Batman style.
So the turntable just with tinfoil.
Yeah,
stuff.
tinfoil on a record turntable, a camera looking down.
And there's a couple of shots where it's at an angle too, which I like those.
Yeah,
with the blue filter, actually, you know, it's,
used a lot of sellotape because the tinfoil had to be. The tinfoil only came in that wide
18
sections,
inches, yeah.
so we had to stick tin. It's not an easy thing to do, actually, sticking tinfoil together because it just doesn't. It waves around. Mm-hmm. Wish we could have got. I think there's like an industrial level of tinfoil. The tunnels in Temple of Doom are not made of Baco foil.
No, it's something a bit more.
and of course they're painted, and I think there's even texture on them too, so they're a bit more. But I think a lot of our stuff. I mean, we had chicken wire, didn't we? That was, I think it sat on a lot of the time, and I remember taping it sort of sandwiched on there. But a lot of the time it was just sort of scrunched up and just, you know, like this.
Why didn't we paint some of it? That would have.
I think because we liked the way it looked. We really liked that effect, that it was all sort of sparkly and shiny and red. Because I think originally there was I did a painting of what we thought a tunnel might look like that we were going to have on the set, and it was just a classic, you know, brown red rocky cave.
Our pyrotechnics are not really that good, are they? It's basically involves buying a box of fireworks on November the 5th and then lighting the entire box of fireworks.
Yep.
They basically stuffed an entire box of fireworks into this model and
set them on
set
the
fire
light.
to it. And
Yeah, so it starts sort of burning, and then it's like, and things will start coming out. But I remember us filming it, I think, in your garage or somewhere. And of course, we had two cameras on it because we're like, okay, this is a one-shot deal kind of thing. And we finished shooting, and then we sort of like both stood up and realized this whole garage was like full of smoke. I mean, probably looking back over all of them, I mean, it was only, 4 or 5 years, I suppose, 81 to 84, 85. But it was, you know, we learned a lot, you know, some good, some bad, like what to do, what not to do. I think it was good that we actually made films rather than just, let's just shoot something blowing up with fireworks. It's just, like the fact that we incorporated it into stories, you know, narrative in some fashion, was good. And then you did actually sort of finish something, good or bad, even if you ended up shooting bits off the TV to kind of have something that you could call done. You know, I think there was something that you could then like think about that. What did we do? Did we like it? Did we not? Was it good? Was it, you know, and then sort of move on to the next thing. So Dave and I grew up in the same neighbourhood, which is a part of northeast London called Enfield, Edmonton, Winchmore Hill, Southgate kind of area.
I used to live in Cambridge Gardens and Matthew used to live in Berkeley Gardens.
It's a suburb. It's close enough to the central London that you can hop on a tube and be there in 20 minutes, but also 5 minutes in a car or 15 minutes by bike, you're out in the country, literally, with like cows and, you know, and all that sort of stuff.
It's just a typical average North London suburb, but this was no average North London suburb. It was an idyllic, it was almost like living in the countryside, wasn't it? It was like, it had a river. In fact, we divided it into zones. We said, we talked about the brook. We called it the brook. It was actually called Salmon's Brook. And we had different zones. We had something called the Pipes, which was like another location. We had the golf course, golden childhood. I can't imagine a better childhood, really. It was just idyllic in some ways.
So, and where we lived on different streets that backed onto Salmon's Brook, which is like this quite, you know, meandering stream, really. But basically the houses had gardens and then garages and then alleyways, and then the alleyways were divided by basically Salmon's Brook with riverbanks in between. So it was a great place to play growing up. You know, you'd kind of go out there and there were trees to climb and banks to go down, and you'd try and cross the stream without getting wet and stuff. And I think that's where we met, just probably one sunny afternoon doing something. If you were making a movie about like, oh, our idyllic childhood, you know, the layout of it with the houses and the alleys, and the fact that there was like at one end of the alley, there was this tunnel that was pitch black that you could kind of like, if you were brave enough, go into.
I'm walking down the tunnels that we used to go down when we were kids. I mean, it's just so spooky, you can't believe it. It's like stalactites, stalagmites, and it's like pitch black. And we used to go down here, we used to, actually on our way to school, we used to walk this way. It's like being Indiana Jones walking down here.
Yeah, Dave described it. It had a bend in the tunnel, so you couldn't see the end of it. It was just black. You were just going into blackness. And
it's a tunnel that runs under the road in Winchmore Hill, and we used to we didn't really play in this tunnel because it was just so creepy. You wouldn't want to spend too much time in here. I haven't seen any rats yet, but I hate rats. When we were kids, we used to dare each other to walk down this tunnel, and it's just the most spooky thing. Even now, I feel like someone's going to grab me from behind. It's just so creepy.
it had a weir in it, so there was water rushing. So as you got deeper and deeper inside it, and it got darker and darker and darker, you couldn't hear anything outside. You just had this kind of rushing water. It was like creepy. And then if you went the other way, sort of from our alley, there was you had to sort of like work your way past the sort of edges of the alley, sort of things where you'd probably get yelled at if you were seen or heard.
The other tunnel was actually like Victorian in its look. It had just kind of weird pipes going across.
And it's actually, I think it's a listed thing. The Clarendon Arch, I now know it's called. There's actually a little plaque there that says, Clarendon Arch established. But to us, it was just the pipes.
It actually runs under the New River, which used to supply all the water to London. It's running under the river as a tunnel. We used to go through that to get to the golf course, but it was the only way you could get into the golf course without being seen by the golfers. If you took that route, you could either be seen by the golfers and shouted at by the golfers, or you could be seen by the people in the orchard and shouted at by the people in the orchard. It was a way up between the two.
Yeah.
Sometimes you'd get shouted at both. Well, I mean, I think a lot of it was, we were at school and there'd be sort of school holidays, and it was kind of like, hey, what should we do? And I was like, let's make a film. Yeah. And I think, we were obviously inspired. I think we were both inspired by the Jerry Anderson TV shows. And I think there was something either in childhood naivety or just passion or something that just was like, we could kind of do that. I don't know where that came from, this idea that, oh yeah, we could do that. Get up in the morning, if it was a school break again, watch Robinson Crusoe in the morning, and then go outside. And again, I think just on that, I think that show was actually quite instrumental, I think, in certainly getting me outside, because it is on the island and he's doing things and he's figuring things out, and that sort of made, as you said, that environment we lived in with, a stream and two riverbanks and a tunnel at one end and sort of an impassable end of where our alleys ended to this new, sort of new frontier, made it, quite a good, layout, or a good layout for sort of, adventures.
It really was a great adventure living in that area when we were kids. Hope you enjoyed our trip down Super 8 Memory Lane